Well spoken. All right, trending. Facebook trending. I was reading an article by a young lady who was ruminating on her trending life. She was trending at one point, just in this one thing that really caught her. For 2 hours, she was following the trending on the social media. And after 2 hours, she had learned that one of the Kardashians had put on some weight. She had found that there was extra security because the Pope was coming, and she found out a whole bunch of other stuff. And after that 2 hours, the 2 hours just went past. And then she when she wrote this article for the newspaper, she said, I just lost 2 hours of my life. I totally lost 2 hours of my life, and I was totally distracted from real life by the social trending media. And it means nothing. I learned a whole lot that I can't do anything with, and it means nothing. What I could have done in those 2 hours and what I wanted to do, but I couldn't because it got too late. I wanted to call my mom. I wanted to call a friend of mine to get together for dinner the next day. I wanted to call a work colleague about something, and I didn't do any of that. I didn't do any of the relationships which make something sensible of my life, because I was bothering with the trending and gathering little tidbits of information. Basically, I was distracted. You all know what it means to be distracted by life. No biggie there. Distractions are just part of the normalcy of your life and mine. And that's exactly how it works out. We get distracted. Sometimes we get distracted by the past, sometimes by the future. Very infrequently do we get distracted by the present. It's mostly the past and the future that distracts us. And that's what the lessons are all about today, with Moses, James's letter, and with Jesus' conversation with the disciples. James himself says, listen, if you're distracted because you're suffering, now notice he does not say physical suffering, right? Okay, one of the big, oh my God, it's trending on social media, just so you know. No, actually I'm lying, it's not. One of the big things in our culture is people suffer because they can't figure out why they're alive. And they can't figure out why they are here and what their purpose and meaningfulness of their time here on the planet is all about. And so they are distracted. They're suffering, as James says, by that. What's James' advice? He says, back off and go into prayer mode for a while. And what happens with prayer, of course, is when you're backing out of the distractions of life, you're looking for a quiet place so that you can actually contemplate, meditate, say a prayer, so that you can get in touch with some of the larger forces which are at play in the unseen world, the spiritual world, the spiritual forces, which are available to us through the gift of the Holy Spirit. And then he goes on and talks about cheerful. Those of you who are cheerful should sing songs of praise and thankfulness. Now, I don't know about you, but the last time you were really, really cheerful, did you walk down the aisle and jump up and click your heels? And go, I'm so happy, I don't know what to do. If you do that, people will look at you like you have two heads, and they will not even do that anymore. They will say, you have the nerve. You have the nerve to be happy? And you're advertising it to everybody? Who do you think you are? Huh? I didn't hear what you said. Was it nice?
Diane Martin.
Oh, Diane Martin. Okay, yes. Yeah. Yeah, but James says that that's one of the really important gifts that you and I bring to the world that we live in. The ability to live in the moment without distractions, to recognize our own suffering times and the suffering times of other people and engage them in a pastoral, ministerial ministry of all believers in a Lutheran church is one of the hallmarks of what a Lutheran church is, where we do that crappy We're no longer a Lutheran church. We're just some goofy stuff. That's the thing that really differentiates us as people of God in the Christian community, is the ministry of all believers. And that means that when you're cheerful, another word for cheerful in the Bible, of course, is joy. Of course, is grace, caritas, charity, both charity of thought and charity of gift-giving. And that is what James says Christians do. That we are with our people in the moment, living with them, recognizing their suffering times, working with them on that, and spreading the cheer which is present and daily available to us, which the distractions of life often cause us to miss. It's amazing. I got distracted by my lawnmower earlier this week. No, I didn't cut my toe off. The darn thing just wasn't working right. It wasn't cutting right.
I want to know what a lawnmower is.
I'll get you a picture of it, okay? But I wouldn't push it too hard because it ain't all that great. You know? But it was interesting. Whose fault was it that the thing wasn't working? Mine? What are you, for real? No, it wasn't my fault. It was my wife's fault. It wasn't the And it was Christian's fault. My middle son who cuts the grass, because he must have really done something to it in the last time. And then it was Allison's fault simply because she was there. You see the distractions that go with us in life and the rationalizations that go with us if we're not able to stay in the moment and focus on what we are doing. It was a rather simple fix. But don't miss the point that when you suffer, even stupidly, your options as a Christian are to spread the wealth in a very negative and unhealthy kind of fashion. And it's the same thing also with cheerfulness that James talks about, that we can also spread the faith and the grace of God by actually coming out of the closet and doing it. Sometimes you almost have to be a little afraid to say, I like life, and I'm glad to be here, and I'm enjoying it. But I would suspect that I know most of you, and I know that all of you really do enjoy life and living. I also know you suffer, and I also know that you seek meaning, and I also know that our community of faith is what Jesus has made accessible to us to use as a resource as we try to focus on living in the moment. You know, the future and the past can ball us up pretty quickly too. The disciples, for example, in Jesus' thing, what was that one guy doing that the disciples got all mad about? He was healing people in Jesus' name. Now what did they do? They got totally distracted from the mission, which is to care for people. And they got distracted because they got uppity, and they got into a power situation. Sounds a little political, doesn't it? They lost the focus of the moment of healing for the sake of political power in their little group. And Jesus just squashed them. And that's the only way to put it. Read through it. He stomped on them and said, don't be ignorant. If you're going to be that ignorant, you know, then cut out whatever is ailing you and get your act together. I was talking to somebody a couple weeks ago that was, you know, I won't even ask how many of you have family fights. No, that maybe lasted 15, 20, 30, 40 years, something along those lines. You know, one of those things. You know, and we were talking about this. It was somebody I didn't know very well, so I just thought in for a dime, in for a dollar. I just said, why are you wasting your energy? Why are you wasting your energy from 30 years ago in a fight which is 30 years old that has absolutely no meaning for your life today, except that it gives you something to talk about and a reason to get your blood racing. And the same, I suppose, with the other person in your family. What exactly is the point? Of what benefit is it? What does it mean? Anything or nothing? Or are you just distracted? And by being distracted, you never have to ask, and this is the point here, people. When you're distracted, you never have to ask the question of the present moment, what is the meaning of my life and my ministry as a follower of Jesus? And so whenever you get distracted, man, you know you're bailing on the faith. Because let's face it, it's easier. Much, much easier. James and Jesus go on to talk very simply about how it is that you can stay in the present moment. And we're not talking hard rocket science or anything like that. They talk about, James, give water when somebody's thirsty. I mean, really? Is there any one of you who wouldn't do that? I suspect all of us would not do it if we were distracted, because it would be a pain in the butt. Because we were busy and on our way, distractedly. If somebody is hungry, you feed them. Jesus talked about caring for children. You know, I don't know about you, many of you who are parents. I'm a parent. You had parents. You realize that we all have brought up wounded children. You do know that. We have not brought up perfect children. Well, with one or two exceptions, perhaps. But that's why Jesus focuses last week in this, spends time talking about the care of children. How do you know of your Christian truthfulness and faith in the world? It's by caring for children and trying to do right things by children. And that's why Jesus says, hey, if you're going to screw the kids, tell you what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to get you a necklace. A big necklace. And I'm going to put it around your neck. And then I'm going to invite you to go swimming with the kids. And then you're going to drown and die. Because after all, what is it you are doing to the children? You're killing them slowly by not paying attention to business in the moment. Past is past. The other thing Jesus and James talk about is forgiveness. You can only live in the past and live with bitterness and enmity and remembrances of a better time. You can only live there so long before it impacts your present relationships and doesn't allow you to enjoy and flourish in that time. You can look into the future so far ahead. And I was talking to somebody whose family is just a mess. They're not members of our congregation because they wouldn't stay in a mess very long. Who was so crazy about money. Absolutely insane. We have to save, we have to work, you have to get a job, you have to get a bigger job, you have to make more money, you have to pour more money away, you have to do this, this, and this, you have to work extra hours so you can make more money. You got to get it because nobody's going to take care of you. It's you against the world, etc. And notice out there, you against the world. You know that's not true. But in thinking about the future, it seems as if you are walking into it all by your lonesome. And just tears the family apart. Tears it apart. Because if you're working a job as a young person and you're making, oh Lord, let's call it $8 an hour because you know you can live really, really well in the Poconos, making $8 an hour, 34 hours a week. I mean, you can afford rent, you can buy food, You can get a health plan. You know, it works out really, really well. Not. Well, you got to get a bigger jug, get more money. And it just, families in turmoil. Because the future is out there and it's vague. And it impacts the present relationships. Past, present, and future are all linked together inexorably. You can't ever get away from it. And that's the point that James and Jesus are talking about in the lessons today. And you'll notice even with Moses. If you want a description in the Bible of a nervous breakdown, for real, read that first reading again. Moses was on the verge of a complete nervous breakdown. Why? Because he alone assumed the responsibility for several thousands of people. He alone making the decisions, he alone absorbing all of the criticisms and ideas, he alone making all the decisions. And his brother-in-law kept saying through the journey, you know, Moses, you're heading for a nervous breakdown. You're getting crazy. And you're also getting mean. Because when you get a nervous break, when you're heading into a depression, you do a combination of hiding out and attacking. You do both at the same time. It's called passive-aggressive. And then your life starts to shrink down. And that's what happened to Moses. You notice what he said in there. Lord, I've had it. I'm done. I want no more of this. Kill me now. And what does the Lord answer back? Through Aaron and through some of the others. Moses, you never had to go it alone. You never had to be the big decision maker all by yourself. You were never asked to do that. What you were asked to do was to provide guidance and instruction, and you were a thick-head because of your past as a loner, and deciding that as a loner you could make it work and you could not. And so you have now screwed yourself and are heading into nervous breakdown territory. You really want to live that way? And Moses said no. And so out of that, they picked 70 people plus 2 more who weren't part of the group. And they spread the leadership wealth and the leadership load, same as we do in the church. That's why we have all different committees and organizations. So we're spreading the wealth so nobody gets nutsy. Because I'll tell you, seriously, when you get tired, what's the first thing you're going to do if you get tired and you got too much on your plate? You're going to determine to shape it and shave it down and end up hurting the whole organization. And that's why the leadership must always expand, even in your family life. As your children mature, your leadership base is expanding. That's the point of what's going on in the lessons today. The final thing that Jesus talks about, that I will close with, is that we have all been salted with good news. That means your personality, the flavor of your life is good. And it's good because you recognize other people's pain, you recognize your own pain, you address it in the immediate moment, you don't sit on it and let it fester and rot and kill you. And you also are salty enough to have the courage, the fortitude, the gifts, when you're in a cheerful mode, to go to other people and share that with them. And cheerfulness is another word in the Bible for joy, for grace, for charisma gifts, those kinds of things. We've been given a great gospel, a wonderful gift through the Holy Spirit. We've been given the gift of praying in times of suffering and recognition that we are suffering, because that's not always so easy to recognize that in ourselves. And the second piece is the gift of grace, where we can share the goodness of God and point that out to people, all of the giftedness with which He has surrounded us. That's your calling and mine as ministers of the gospel. The ministry of all believers is who we are and what we do. And it's important that you play your game of life now, in the moment, with the people around you, and not think you can blow them off. for some future date, or because something happened. They looked at you cross-eyed 8 months ago and you decided they were just not nice people. Please, get over it. That's the upside of the lessons here. You've been salted with the goodness of God. Use it. Amen.
Amen.